Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan, MS Pearce. Ukraine War News Update, technically the second one thereof for today, for the 17th of February 2025. I did a geopolitical news update up until like 2:30 last night, scheduled it for the middle of the night, like 4 in the morning, and it's been hit with a copyright infringement due to showing a clip from the German leaders debate that took place yesterday, and so that hasn't come out yet, and it should have been out like 6 or 7 hours ago. So I'm sorry that I'm late with this, and that one will come out first if it renders in time. Anyway, whatever, let's go to the Ukrainian general staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before. All the usual caveats apply. Of course, you can find them in the video description below. So what do we have? 1,530 personnel lost is a very high number. Again, a couple of days well above the 1,300 arbitrary threshold that I've set. 16 tanks is a high number of tanks as well, well over the daily average there. 52 armoured personnel vehicles. I think both those categories signify that there was a very bad day for the Russians yesterday, and indeed the personnel, showing that they were on the attack. Because when we look at some of these other claims that we're going to come to in a second, we know that the Russians were attacking lots yesterday. We know that they had some pretty sizable columns, and we know that the Ukrainians did a pretty good job of repelling those large attacks. So the Russians went on the offensive big styley over the last couple of days, but they paid a price for it. That is coming through in the statistics, and we do have some video evidence to support that as well. So 16 tanks and 52 APVs, those are significant losses. 37 artillery systems, well above the daily average there. 149 vehicles and fuel tanks is huge in that category, and one piece of special equipment. So all in, really challenging day for the Russians, even though the weather turned sour yesterday and we have seen lots and lots of snow across the front line, across Ukraine. Here we have the news that, I think this is going back some time, not too long. 23 invaders destroyed. Ukraine's special forces released a video of an operation behind Russian lines. Ukrainian troops reportedly held their positions for 2 days amid intense fighting, during which 23 Russian soldiers were killed. So tough times there for those special forces units, for that special forces unit, but they did take out quite a lot of Russians. Ukraine Special Operations Forces, SSO, eliminated 23 Russians during a cleanup of an industrial building behind enemy lines. Using drone reconnaissance, and they identified Russian positions, cleared the building, held their ground for 48 hours, and then withdrew safely. So that appears to have been a very successful operation with a lot of Russian casualties. Okay, what else? Russian Bolsheviks, now from the infamous 155 Marine Brigade. So the 155th Marine Brigade, says Kriegsforscher, who's up in the Kursk region, fighting up there, I believe. He is talking about the 155th up in Kursk, who have been absolutely battered recently and a number of times previously. Remember, these are the guys that were reconstituted from being absolutely battered down in Velikonovo a whole host of times. Some are saying that, you know, they're done. In fact, the last couple of days, some are saying that they've effectively been eliminated. But they're certainly not the elite force that they were at the very, if you were like trying to be as pro-Russian as possible, these guys have been reconstituted that many times that they are just simply it's impossible that they're a crack unit anymore. Anyway, the infamous 155th Marine Brigade, with the help of 4 BTR-82As and 1 T-80 BVM tank, attacked our positions in Kursk. All the vehicles were stopped and destroyed. Needless to say, that every time the air view strikes the Russians command posts in Kursk Oblast, this kind of happens. I sincerely hope that we won't strike the 155th Marine Brigade command posts. These sleeping agents from their command should be awarded with the highest Ukrainian medals. So he's saying, please don't strike the command post for 155th, because they're making stupid decisions. We don't want to take out their command. They just end up committing unit suicide. Russians from that brigade are only capable of massively dying and achieving barely nothing. Due to my modest estimates, this brigade has lost since October the 24th until February the 25th a huge amount of armoured fighting vehicles. 23 T-80 BVs BVM, so 23 tanks, 31 BTR-82As, 43 BMP-3s, 21 MTLB APCs. Just a brigade. They are fine with that. Putin loves them. Wow, just incredible. So, and he has been counting them up. He has been giving us threads of video evidence to support all of those. So he's counted them up. I don't know if he's part of their drone reconnaissance unit or whatnot, but he has consistently shown us that the 155th has been absolutely obliterated a host of times. War Translated saying it has been reported that the first assault company, the 155th Separate Marines Guards Marine Brigade, has been almost completely destroyed. So one of their companies in the Kursk direction. The remaining forces, while retreating, took a few KIA and wounded. The others remained on the battlefield, never reaching Nikolskoye. So I talked about that yesterday. They had a lot of trouble around that area, Nikolskoye, in the Kursk region. Then we hear near Velikonovo-Silka, that's on the southern front, Russian forces launched a massive assault using bad weather as cover, column after column, large infantry groups. Despite the snow and low visibility, the 110th Brigade and adjacent units repelled them. Some armour fled, the rest now rests or rusts on the battlefield. Again, claims supported by video evidence, although these are stills from the video. And you can see the trench lines really clearly there. These Russian assaults are, well, at least this one was repelled, taking heavy losses, just like we've seen up in Kursk as well. Then we hear a Russian armoured column, this is War Translated again, was destroyed near Konstantinopil. That's just to the east of where we're talking Velikonovo-Silka. This is Krakova direction. In the Donetsk region, the tightly packed impact zone suggests they ran into dense minefields. Vehicles detonated while attempting to maneuver around wreckage. Of course, you can go and watch these videos until your heart's content. Ukrainian artillery then finished the job, striking the trapped convoy. And indeed, after having like a week of not a lot of footage coming out and an awful lot of talk about geopolitics and peace plans, the Russians appear to have had 2 days of heavy attacks and lots of footage coming out of stuff getting blown up. Here we have another one. This is referring to his Telegram channel, so it doesn't render here. Ukrainian units repelling a massive mechanized attack in the Bahatir Ulakli axis, which I think is Krakova direction, since yesterday. Multiple big mechanized attacks were reported. The Russians already coming close to Ulakli, footage by the Tivaz artillery crew. So there will be a lot of pressure, and of course the Russians, they do this, they take tremendous losses, but they do take some territory as well in doing so. It's that calculation that it's worth their while to lose men and equipment in massive amounts as long as they take a square kilometre. Then, fascinating, this video is of a motorbike assault where they are driving through some kind of forest area. And the guy ahead, so you got a camera mounted on this guy's helmet, one presumes, and then ahead you can see there's an explosion. It seems like an anti-personnel mine takes out this motorbike, then this motorbike crashes, then another motorbike behind is coming, it gets taken out by a mine, and it's just like complete chaos and destruction of motorbikes, and these personnel getting injured or certainly losing their motorbikes. It is just quite fascinating to watch that video explanation on why motorcycles are not the best type of frontline assault vehicles. Of course, I somewhat disagree. I think motorcycles can be really useful. They do have a place, they do have a competitive advantage in some ways over APC. So if you've got, like I've said before, if you've got 20 people in an APC or on an APC, then that becomes a single target that's easy to take out. It's quite large, and a single anti-tank mine can really do a lot of damage, kill a lot of people, or whether it be mortars or artillery, ATGMs, whatever, you can take out 20 people all at once and a big piece of kit. If you have 20 people on motorcycles, they become much more difficult to hit and less likely, you're not going to kill 20 people all in one. You have to have a number of mines and a number of hits on these people to take them out. So there is a competitive advantage to using motorcycles, but they are also susceptible to mines, to anti-personnel mines, in a way that an APC wouldn't be. There can be havoc caused when they are taken out, of course. Now, Triceratops has sent me this. Unfortunately, the guys mostly have data only pre-war 2021 and 2024. But basically someone's done an analysis. If Ukraine holds in 2025, and we all know they will, this guy says, Russia will be out of stuff. Also, this is all the stuff, no matter what condition the equipment is in. I think if they recount artillery, there is none. So here is basically, there is an analysis here to show that 2025 is a critical year. And they're looking like they're going to run out. I'm yet to watch Perrin's video from yesterday about personnel losses and where the Russians are with personnel. That's surely going to be a must watch. So I'm watching Perrin's video today. But a number of different analyses have shown that the Russians are going to be in trouble this year. So Triceratops says, as well as tanks, there are almost no tanks left in Russian storage that can be repaired, and only a few thousand APCs, IFVs in good enough condition. That is what, 200 days of average daily losses? Ukraine can mobilize more men if needed. Ukraine has the heavy equipment. They have artillery, ammunition, and they have some aircraft. Enough to attack? Absolutely no. Enough to hold for a year or two? Absolutely yes. And they also have a drone industry that kicked into the 11th gear. If Russia just keeps sending the equipment, they have the drones to burn it all. And then there will be the glorious Russian army with their anything thicker than a few millimeters and Ukrainians in their heavy machinery. Unless Trump literally helps Russia, i.e. lifting sanctions at least, and Europe stops with its support, Russia is toast. In 2026, Russia will have no towed artillery, only towed artillery. And this is something that a number of people sent me previously when I've mentioned towed artillery. People are like, whenever you say that, I think you mean something like this. So anyway, interesting. 2025 is an important year, and it does. I do worry that if the war is brought to a premature close, then that will disadvantage Ukraine and it will let Russia off the hook. Tim White and many people shared this yesterday. There is evidence of an S-350 air defense, so between the S-300 and S-400. This is a good target to have taken out. However, you can tell this is not recent. This is summertime or similar. Published footage, yes, over the destruction of the S-350 air defense system used by Russia. It's not known exactly where or when the Vityaz was hit. And of course, looking at the foliage, it's going to be some time ago. So I'm still not very well. I have to keep pausing to die a little bit. Okay, FPV drones claimed more civilian lives in Ukraine than any other weapon, according to the January report by the UN Human Rights Monitoring Mission in Ukraine. According to the organisation, at least 139 civilians were killed and 738 injured in Ukraine in January alone this year. 139 civilians killed by drones. Now, I'm going to be speaking to Brendan Kelly in a mere 2 hours' time. So please check that out. That will be hopefully a revealing, if somewhat macabre, conversation about exactly this. We're also going to talk about USAID funding that's been stopped and what that means for Ukraine. Today is a day of military journalists in Ukraine. Says top lead. Russia killed 97 journalists during a full-scale war. They have killed both Ukrainian and foreign, who revealed the truth about this war to the world. 72 as participants in military operations, 13 due to Russian shelling or torture, and 12 while performing a journalistic job. So that is what Russia does. They kill journalists and they stop the reportage being able to be carried out. Now, a fire in Voronezh has destroyed 2 Russian R-330 Zhitels, these electronic warfare systems, overnight on January the 27th to 28th. So this is a couple of weeks ago, but we are hearing that sabotage has taken out these systems at the Protech plant where they were produced. Russia planned to send them to the war in Ukraine, but the fire had other plans. I do wonder whether they are still producing or at what scale they're producing stuff like these Zhitels and electronic warfare pieces, radar systems, even anti-aircraft systems. I wonder how many of them they're able to produce a month, given the sanctions in place and the challenges that the Russians face. So they're clearly still making these, and the fact that they've made 2 and they've burnt at the plant is absolutely brilliant. That's some top level sabotage going on there. Really good news for the Ukrainians. Okay, we'll move on to distant strikes. And last night, 150 drones were sent into Ukraine. 83 So almost 150, 147, sorry. 83 were shot down, 59 were stopped or proved to be harmless simulators. So that is, if we add 60 onto 80, that's 140. Take one off, 139. Add 3 on, that's 142. That's 5 getting through. So 5 out of 147 is not too bad an interception rate there. Okay. In Mykolaiv, electricity generation was completely destroyed after a night attack on the central heating and power plant, according to the mayor. So this was something I reported. This didn't happen last night, but the night before. I think it was 2 nights ago. Currently, we are trying to restore heat supply using alternative ways to solve the problem. So that was a couple of nights ago. But last night, the destruction appears to have been in Kharkiv. A lot of damage there in various attacks in the past 12 hours or so. 3 women have been injured. Regional head says 11 guided glide bombs have hit the city. And of course, it's not just about the drones. There are still these guided glide bombs being used to wreak havoc on the Ukrainian people. 3 women were injured in the Holonodnohirsk district of Kharkiv when an attack drone landed. So there's still drone activity around Kharkiv as well as those guided glide bombs. In the Saltivsky part of the city, there's also damage mainly to windows and a cement plant. So here you can see the sort of damage that happens routinely. And of course, that's cumulative. After months and months of this happening, most nights, you get a real degradation of living conditions, standard and quality of life, of infrastructure. And, you think about what's happened to Kherson over the last year or so. In Zaporizhia, there were 3 fires resulting from drone strikes. Almost 1,500 people were left without power. After the attack, no one was injured. So, there is that, I suppose, but still a lot of damage being done. Now, drone sanctions, scare quotes, drone sanctions are still taking place. So last night, Ukraine struck an oil refinery, the Ilsky oil refinery in Russia's Krasnodar Krai region. There was a lot of chatter last night, a lot of videos coming out from Krasnodar Krai of drone activity and things being struck. So although there's not too much emerging from today, I think the Ukrainians probably did quite a good job last night. Residents earlier posted videos on social media purportedly showing explosions at the refinery in the Seversky district of Krasnodar Krai. Indeed, you can see there's some pretty substantial clouds and flames going on there. That's reportedly the refinery burning last night. Ukrainian armed forces attempted to attack the Ilsky oil refinery in Krasnodar as local residents of the village of Severskaya told SHOT, that's a Russian news agency. A series of loud explosions were heard in the sky about at 1 a.m. The drone debris fell near the local refinery. Emergency services are currently working on the scene. Well, that doesn't look like near the refinery. That looks like on the refinery. That looks like a lot of burning going on. But not too much news coming out at the moment. Russian monitoring channels report that Ukrainian drones are attacking the Afipsky oil refinery, which has been attacked before, and the Ilsky oil refinery. Both indeed have been subject to previous attacks. So, possibly some big news coming out from there. Largest oil pumping station in Krasnodar, the Kropotkinskaya, was hit by Ukraine and has stopped working. So that's good news for the Ukrainians. It's part of the Caspian Pipeline Consortium, TPC. Oil is now flowing at a reduced speed. So, as I say, I think there's been a fairly good night for the Ukrainians in that context. Right, moving on to other bits and pieces. We have, what do we have to begin with? Okay, the weather is pretty bad across Kyiv. Heavy snowfall in most cities. In the mountains in the west of Ukraine, temperatures dip to minus 22 degrees Celsius. So really cold. That could affect the activities along the front line, although it didn't seem to yesterday, as we had pretty heavy losses for the Russians. A new Russian spy unit is behind the recent intensification of hybrid warfare against the West. So this is a Wall Street Journal article that I talked about, referenced yesterday. I'm going to get Anton Gerashchenko to summarize it for me. So, Russian hybrid warfare will likely escalate further. The Department of Special Tasks, based in the Russian military intelligence headquarters, was set up in 2023 to respond to Western support of Ukraine. Its staff includes seasoned intelligence veterans, according to European intelligence. The department is believed to be behind the attempted assassination of Rheinmetall's executive and a plot to put bombs on DHL planes. It has 3 main tasks. 1, carrying out killings and sabotage overseas. 2, infiltrating Western companies and universities, and 3, recruiting and training foreign agents, including in Ukraine and in friendly countries like Serbia. The department has been particularly focused on Germany, as Russia sees the country as a weak link in NATO. Without naming the department, Europe has placed sanctions on it in December. The US has also issued charges against its alleged leaders and offers $10 million for any information about the members of the department responsible for cyber attacks. So that's a bit more information on the group mentioned yesterday. Now, there is a rumor. I don't know why I don't have the link. I think I must have lost some links yesterday. But there is some news, there's some reporting. Was it Poroshenko himself saying he has seen from his people or whatever, he might have some insiders in the government, paperwork has been seen, and also possibly that the military are ramping up, the police are ramping up, so they know the date. Anyway, there's a theory that I think it's October the 26th has been suggested for a date for elections in Ukraine. So that's a rumor out. Poroshenko has been sanctioned by the government, and many people are saying, well, this looks like a political hit job on Poroshenko so that he can't run against Zelensky. But in Zelensky's defense, this is a continuation of the investigations that were paused 3 years ago when the war started. So after Moscow launched its full-scale invasion, the investigation on criminal cases against the ex-president was halted. 3 years later, the suspended criminal case was one of the official reasons for imposing sanctions against Poroshenko. So the question would be, was this a political hit job 3 years ago? If it's not, I mean, if he is really making money out of, coal plants in Russia, if he's got chocolate plants in Russia and buying coal from occupied Luhansk and stuff like that. So, there are connections that he has to Russia, even though he supports the Ukrainian army big time. But if they are genuine, then obviously, something needs to be done about that. As somebody says, Poroshenko is a Russian proxy. But he seems to be straddling both sides of the fence. I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens there. I've not cast my opinion strongly on whether this is a hit job or not, because I don't know. I don't have enough information. But yes, it's interesting to know it is a continuation of previous investigations. As mentioned yesterday in a breaking news piece, and indeed the other video that hasn't come out yet, Starmer has committed troops, peacekeeping troops to Ukraine, which I think is really good. Starmer, say what you like about him, he's met Zelensky 8 times now. I don't know that there's any other leader that's met Zelensky as many times as Starmer. Maybe there is, but that's a lot of times. I know it took him a long time to get to Ukraine, but he did get to Ukraine. But he met with Zelensky a whole host of times before that, and we have stepped in under the previous government as well. So kudos to basically all our leaders for support. Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak, all our leaders have supported Ukraine big time, and we were ahead of the game for main battle tanks, for cruise missiles, etc., and here for peacekeeping troops. So I think it's a really good thing. We're hearing today that Sweden are saying that they're not ruling out sending troops, so that they could be other nations that follow suit here. But of course, the important thing is the peace negotiations before you get to that stage, and making sure that Ukraine is in a really good position and not forced into an agreement that is beneficial for Russia. And I think there's a real risk of that, especially when you have Sergei Lavrov coming out and saying there can be no talk of territorial concessions to Ukraine. So in other words, we can't concede what they think is their territory to Ukraine. That's territory they've stolen off Ukraine. At the same time, the US has said there's unlikely concessions from Ukraine to Russia. So it looks like the American position is aligned to Lavrov, which is deeply worrying for Ukraine. So when it comes to an expedited end to this war, that would only, I think, benefit Russia, especially when you go back and look at the amount of equipment they have lost, the Russians, and how much they have likely left. You don't want to force this negotiation into really, the idea that there's this arbitrary time that Trump wants this over, the ceasefire done by Easter. Like, that's irrespective of whether that's beneficial or not for Ukraine. It goes back to this idea that the US are no longer an ally of Ukraine. They're a mediator. They'll sell weapons to Europe, but they won't give military assistance to Ukraine in a way that they were previously. You know, it's the end of large-scale presidential drawdown and USAI orders from the US themselves. And I think that's an absolute crying shame. I think it's a betrayal. Personally, I think it's a betrayal of Ukraine. And we're hearing that a lot from Ukrainians. So that's how they feel. Yeah, it's a bit of a shocker. So anyway, that's Lavrov's position. But please look out for my my geopolitical video from last night. But also, I have a live with Brendan Kelly. So it'd be great to see you there for that. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.